For most of his life, the world believed Julius Erving was immune to pain. They saw a man who glided through the air as if gravity had made an exception just for him. A man whose calm smile never changed, even under pressure. A man who looked like he had mastered not just basketball, but life itself. To millions of fans, Julius Erving wasn't just a superstar. He was the image of control, elegance, and quiet strength. But what the cameras never captured was how much of that calm was learned, not natural. Long before the championships and the fame, Julius Erving grew up learning how to stand on his own. His father left when he was still a child, forcing his mother to raise the family alone. That absence didn't just create hardship, it shaped his emotional wiring. When someone who is supposed to stay disappears early in your life, you grow up understanding one brutal lesson. You can't afford to fall apart. Not visibly, not publicly, not ever. Basketball became his escape, but also his shield. On the court, he could control everything, his body, his timing, the outcome. Off the court, life was far less predictable. So he leaned into the one place where effort led to results, where discipline meant safety. Over time, that discipline became his identity. As his career exploded, first in the ABA and then in the NBA, Julius Erving became more than a player. He became a symbol, a brand, a role model. The league marketed his grace. Fans admired his composure. Media praised his professionalism. And slowly, without anyone noticing, the man himself disappeared behind the image. Success demanded perfection. Perfection demanded silence. Then in the year 2000, everything shattered. Julius Erving's 19-year-old son, Corey, went missing. Days later, the news came that would permanently divide his life into before and after. Corey's car had gone into a retention pond. He drowned. Authorities ruled it an accident. No headline can prepare a parent for that reality. Losing a child doesn't just cause grief, it destroys the future you are quietly carrying in your mind. Every imagined conversation, every milestone, every version of what could have been disappears in an instant. And for a man who had spent his entire life maintaining control, this was a pain with no solution, no fix, no recovery timeline. Yet the public saw almost nothing. There were no emotional press conferences, no public breakdowns, no visible collapse. Because legends are not allowed to break. They are expected to endure quietly, to grieve privately, to return to being inspirational as soon as possible. So Julius Erving did what he had always done. He endured. But endurance doesn't mean healing. Years later, he would describe parts of his life after that loss as feeling blank, almost erased. That is how deep grief works. It doesn't scream every day. Sometimes it simply removes time. You function, you move forward, but something essential never comes back. And as if that pain weren't enough, there was another silent fracture in his life, one that fame made easier to hide. Julius Erving had a daughter, Alexandra Stevenson, born from an extramarital relationship. She would grow up to become a professional tennis player, strong and talented in her own right. Financial support was provided, but emotional presence was limited. Their relationship remained distant for years. This is not a story about judgment. It is a story about cost. Fame doesn't just take your privacy. It takes your time, your attention, your emotional availability. And sometimes, without realizing it, you trade moments you can never get back for a career the world will eventually stop watching. At 75, Julius Erving is no longer defined by dunks or trophies. He is defined by reflection, by loss, by the quiet realization that even legends are powerless against certain tragedies. The world still sees Dr. J, the icon, the pioneer, the Hall of Famer. But behind that image is a man who lost his father early, lost his son too soon, and lost pieces of family life that fame promised could wait. And that is why this story is not just sad. It is beyond heartbreaking. Because when the applause fades, what remains is not greatness, but memory. After the funeral, after the condolences faded, after the world quietly moved on, Julius Erving was left alone with something far heavier than grief. He was left with silence. Not the peaceful kind, the dangerous kind, the kind that fills every quiet moment when there is no crowd, no schedule, no game to prepare for. The kind that forces you to sit with questions that have no answers. Why your child? Why that night? Why you, after everything you had already endured? For a man whose entire life had been built on movement, discipline, and momentum, stillness became unbearable. And this is where many legends quietly unravel. Because grief does not announce itself every day. It waits. It hides. Then it shows up at night, in empty rooms, in moments when success no longer demands attention. For Julius Erving, basketball had always given him structure, purpose, a reason to keep going forward without looking back. But now, there was nothing left to outrun. Friends noticed a change. He was still polite, still composed, still Dr. J. But something essential had dimmed. The joy was quieter, the laughter shorter, the confidence more fragile than it appeared. He didn't talk about his pain much, not because it wasn't there, but because he had spent a lifetime learning how to keep pain invisible. That coping mechanism had once made him great. Now it was isolating him. As the years passed, Julius tried to rebuild a sense of normalcy. He stayed involved with basketball, appeared at events, mentored younger players. From the outside, it looked like resilience. From the inside, it was survival. But there was another truth he had to confront, one that grief made impossible to ignore. Fame had taken more than it had given. The endless travel, the pressure to be present everywhere except at home, the belief that success justified sacrifice, all of it came due. Relationships he thought he had time to fix were now frozen in the past. Moments he assumed could wait had already passed. And the loss of his son forced him to see something terrifyingly clear. No achievement, no legacy, no admiration from millions could protect what mattered most. This realization doesn't arrive gently. It arrives like regret. At an age when many people begin counting what they've gained, Julius Erving found himself counting what he couldn't get back. The conversations that never happened. The years that disappeared. The version of life that existed only in memory. Aging doesn't soften these thoughts, it sharpens them. Because when you're young, you believe time is flexible. When you're older, you understand it is ruthless. At 75, the world still celebrates Dr. J for redefining basketball, for inspiring generations, for making the game beautiful. But that celebration exists alongside a quieter truth. The man behind the legend paid a price that no highlight reel ever shows. He learned that strength can become a cage, that silence can become a habit, and that fame, no matter how powerful, cannot shield you from the most human pain of all. The tragedy of Julius Erving is not that he fell from greatness. It's that he remained great while carrying unbearable loss, and had to do it mostly alone. Because when the applause ends, when the cameras shut off, when a legend fades into history, what remains is not a symbol. It is a man, with memories, with regret, with love that has nowhere to go. And that is the part of his story that truly breaks the heart. By the time Julius Erving reached his mid-70s, something subtle but irreversible had happened. The world had stopped asking him to be Superman. No more expectations to dominate. No more pressure to inspire with performance. No more need to smile on cue. And that freedom came with a cost. Because when the role finally ends, you are left face to face with the person you postponed becoming. For decades, Julius Erving had lived in motion. Even after retirement, he stayed busy. Appearances, advisory roles, ceremonial moments that kept the legend alive. But age has a way of stripping distractions away. The calendar empties. The phone rings less often. The nights get longer. That's when memory becomes loud. At this stage of life, grief no longer feels sharp. It feels permanent. His son's absence was no longer a shock. It was a constant. A presence defined by what wasn't there. Birthdays passed quietly. Milestones arrived with a familiar ache. And no amount of time made it easier to explain why the world kept moving when parties had stopped. There is a cruel truth about aging icons. Eventually, they stop being celebrated for what they are and start being remembered for what they were. And memory is a dangerous place to live, because memory replays everything, especially the moments you wish you had handled differently. The relationships you believed could wait. The conversations you avoided because you were tired, busy, or convinced there would be another chance. At 75, Julius Erving understands something his younger self never could. Greatness is loud, but regret is quiet and far more persistent. He has spoken over the years about family, about values, about lessons learned too late. Not with drama, not with spectacle, but with the restraint of someone who knows words cannot undo the past. There is no attempt to rewrite history, only to acknowledge it. And that acknowledgement is where the real tragedy lives. Because Julius Erving did almost everything right by the standards of success. He stayed disciplined. He avoided scandal. He built a legacy admired across generations. He became a symbol of elegance in a violent sport. Yet none of that prevented the deepest pain of his life. None of it saved his son. None of it repaired lost time. None of it filled empty chairs. This is the part fans struggle to accept, that a life can look extraordinary and still feel unfinished. As the years slow him down, Julius Erving now exists in reflection more than ambition. He watches younger players soar through the air, and somewhere in that motion is a reminder of who he once was, but also of how quickly everything passes. Fame fades faster than people expect. Applause ends sooner than it should. And what remains is not a legend, but a man living with what he loved and what he lost. The tragedy of Julius Erving is not that his career ended. It's that life kept going after it did. And at 75, with the world still calling him Dr. J, he carries a truth few fans ever see, that the most painful battles are not fought on the court, and the most heartbreaking losses are not the ones the crowd witnesses. They happen quietly, slowly, when no one is watching. And that is why this story lingers long after the highlights fade. As Julius Erving stands at the threshold of his 75th year, the world continues to applaud his achievements. They still remember the man who revolutionized the game, who was both an athlete and an artist. To most, Dr. J's legacy is already written in stone. But what happens when the world no longer sees you as the icon, but as the man behind it? What remains when you no longer have the applause to drown out your deepest doubts? Julius Erving has spent the better part of his life being someone the world needed him to be, an entertainer, a role model, a living legend. His image was meticulously constructed, his success public and celebrated. Yet in his most vulnerable moments, when no one was watching, he faced the cruelest truths about the very life that made him famous. It's often said that fame can be a prison, and no one understands this better than those who have lived their lives in the public eye. The more you give to the world, the more you risk losing yourself. The more you perform, the more you distance yourself from the parts of you that need to be real. And Dr. J gave everything, not just to basketball, but to the people who expected him to be something larger than life. But the truth about greatness is that it often comes with a price you never truly understand until it's too late. For Julius, the loss of his son, the missed moments with family, the years spent chasing something he thought would fill the empty spaces, these are the parts of his life no one saw. These are the chapters not written in books or on highlight reels. And perhaps that is the most painful part of his legacy, the parts that will never be celebrated, the moments he would trade everything to undo. But amid the heartache, Julius Erving has shown us something even more profound than his physical feats. He has shown us that true greatness is not about never falling. It's about how you rise after you do. Even in the face of unbearable loss, even when the world has moved on, Dr. J continues to stand. And in his quiet reflection, in his honest acknowledgement of the things that matter most, he teaches us that legacy isn't measured by what you accomplish for the world. It's what you've done for yourself and your loved ones. As his story continues to unfold, we are reminded that behind every legend is a person who has to face the same struggles, the same losses, the same human experiences that we all do. And in that, Dr. J is not just a hero of the court. He is a hero in the truest sense of the word. Because no matter how loud the world shouts your name, in the end, it's the whispers that matter most. The ones you hear in the quiet moments, in the spaces between the applause, in the memories that remain long after the cameras stop rolling. Dr. J's legacy will always be remembered for the heights he reached on the basketball court, for the way he transcended the game. But perhaps his most enduring legacy will be the lesson he leaves behind. No one is invincible, but strength can be found even in the face of heartbreak. At 75, Julius Erving is more than a basketball icon. He is a reminder that while we all may chase greatness, it is the quiet battles we face off the court that truly define us. And that, in the end, is a legacy more powerful than any dunk. At 75, Julius Erving, the man the world knows as Dr. J, has reached a point in his life where the roar of the crowd has long faded, and the courts he once dominated are now memories. Yet, even with all his accolades, there remains one undeniable truth. The story of Dr. J is not just about basketball. It's about a man who, like all of us, had to face the human cost of greatness. Dr. J's legacy is carved into the history of the NBA, from his breathtaking dunks to his unparalleled skill. Yet, what many don't realize is that the man behind the legend has also faced more personal challenges than anyone could imagine. The losses, the moments of silence, the reflection of what fame truly costs. As his career grew, so did the expectations. The world demanded that Julius Erving remain untouchable, strong, graceful, and perfect. He played his part well, but as his fame soared, the cost of being an icon grew heavier. Behind every win, there was a man who carried the weight of his past, of the absence of a father, and later, the death of his son. The loss of Corey, his 19-year-old son, was not just the death of a child. It was the end of something Dr. J could never fix. It was the point at which the greatest athlete learned the painful lesson that even legends cannot escape loss. And yet, Julius Erving did what every true legend does. He carried on. He carried the pain with him, never showing it to the world. He showed up for every game, every event, every moment where he was expected to shine. And he did so with the same grace that made him a household name. But underneath it all, there was a quiet struggle. The truth that Dr. J had to come to terms with was not that he was invincible. It was that, like anyone, he was fragile. His fame didn't protect him from grief. His status didn't shield him from regret. The empty spaces in his life, those left by his father, by Corey, and by moments lost to fame, were constant reminders of what couldn't be changed. But in his final years, Dr. J has found a different kind of peace, not one that comes from winning on the court, but from accepting the scars that life has left him with. He's come to understand that a legacy isn't just about titles, trophies, or records. It's about the lessons you leave behind, the resilience you show when everything else falls apart. And perhaps most importantly, it's about what you can teach others, not through what you achieved, but through what you overcame. Julius Erving's story is one of triumph and heartache, of soaring heights and devastating losses. But as he reflects on his life at 75, he has come to understand that it is the struggles, the challenges, and the battles fought off the court that truly define him. He is not just a basketball legend. He is a man who has lived through loss, through hardship, and through the quiet moments when no one is watching. And in that, he has left a legacy that will last far beyond the game of basketball. Dr. J's story isn't just a story of what he did for basketball. It's a story of what he did for all of us, showing us that even when the world watches, even when the legend is born, it's the human moments that truly matter. At 75, Julius Erving has lived a life that few can truly understand. The world still remembers him as Dr. J, the basketball legend who defied gravity and changed the game forever. But behind the iconic dunks, the MVPs, and the Hall of Fame induction, there lies a deeper story, a story of struggle, loss, and ultimately, the quest for peace. In the early years of his retirement, Erving kept himself busy, staying involved in basketball and mentoring the next generation of players. He had built a career that most athletes could only dream of, yet something was missing. Even with all the recognition and fame, Julius was haunted by the same pain that many people carry: the need to make sense of loss, the desire to find peace after years of running from it. It wasn't until his 70s that he began to reflect on the life he had lived. The pain of losing his son, Corey, had never truly left him. The grief wasn't something that simply faded with time. It lingered, always just below the surface, a reminder of the most painful chapter of his life. But over time, Julius found a way to sit with the loss, to accept that it was a part of him, that it would always be a part of his journey. In a rare moment of openness, Julius once shared that the hardest part of losing Corey wasn't just the loss itself, but the fact that he couldn't fix it. For someone who had spent his entire life solving problems, playing basketball to perfection, and achieving greatness, not having control over something so significant was a humbling experience. But as the years passed, Julius began to see the beauty in the struggle. The pain he had carried for so long had shaped him into a more complete man. It had made him vulnerable. It had made him human. And in embracing that humanity, Julius found a new kind of strength, a strength not defined by what he achieved, but by how he faced his darkest moments. As he looks back on his legacy, Dr. J is not focused on the records or the trophies. He is focused on something far more important: the relationships he has built, the lessons he has learned, and the peace he has found in letting go of the things he cannot control. His story is no longer about being the perfect athlete, the flawless superstar. It's about being a man who lived through pain, faced it head-on, and ultimately found a way to make peace with it. At 75, Julius Erving is more than just a legend in basketball. He is a testament to the power of resilience, the importance of family, and the strength it takes to heal from loss. He has taught us that even in the face of tragedy, there is hope. That even after everything falls apart, there is still a chance to rebuild. And that sometimes the hardest battles we face are the ones that no one else will ever see. As his journey continues, Julius Erving will remain a figure of inspiration, not just for his achievements on the court, but for how he has lived his life with grace, humility, and the quiet strength that only those who have faced true loss can understand. In the end, Dr. J's story is not about the slam dunks or the championships. It's about the man who, despite it all, chose to rise. And that is the greatest legacy of all. At 75, Julius Erving, the basketball icon known as Dr. J, has spent a lifetime proving that greatness isn't just about what you accomplish on the court. It's about how you face the challenges life throws at you. After years of dazzling fans with his athleticism and unmatched flair, Dr. J has transitioned from being a symbol of invincibility to a reminder of human fragility, resilience, and the power of quiet strength. As the years have passed, Julius Erving has increasingly found peace in living beyond the spotlight. The roar of the crowds has long since quieted, and the games are no longer being played. But the lessons learned through decades of personal struggle and loss continue to shape who he is today. In many ways, Julius has become an expert in embracing the silence, something he never had the luxury of in his prime. In an era when constant visibility and constant pressure to perform were the norms, Julius often found solace in his ability to remain composed, both on and off the court. Now, as he reflects on his life, he recognizes that true peace comes not from the recognition of others, but from being at peace with oneself. Despite his legendary status, Dr. J's greatest challenge was not winning titles or enduring physical pain. It was finding a way to live with the painful losses that came with life's unpredictability: his son's death, the absence of his father, and the strain of balancing family with a demanding career. He came to realize that success in life does not lie in never falling, but in the courage to rise each time you do. Dr. J has now become a figure whose strength isn't found in his basketball statistics, but in the way he lives with what he has lost. Over time, he's learned to speak less about what he accomplished and more about what truly matters: human connection, vulnerability, and resilience. He's learned that there is no real strength without acknowledging pain, and that healing comes when you allow yourself to feel, not just to perform. Through the years of reflection, Julius Erving has come to understand that his legacy, while still cherished for its breathtaking athleticism, extends far beyond the basketball court. It lies in the real, human moments that fans never saw, in the quiet moments of loss and redemption. Dr. J's journey has taught us that life's greatest victories aren't always in the form of trophies, but in how we respond to the darkest parts of our story. At 75, Julius Erving is no longer chasing accolades or trying to live up to the expectations placed on him. He is simply living for himself, finding joy in the relationships that matter, in the lessons of his life, and in the quiet moments of reflection. His final chapter isn't about being remembered for his career. It's about being at peace with who he has become. For Dr. J, this is the ultimate victory. He has lived a life full of challenges, but he has also found a way to live a life of grace. His story reminds us that no matter the circumstances, no matter the losses, there is always strength in embracing who you are and who you've become along the way. And that, above all else, is a legacy that will continue to inspire long after the basketball courts have gone silent.